Welcome to Dan ARG YouTube. Members and leaders of great Benin Descendants don hold press conference. For this press conference, you will hear a lot. Try make you watch from beginning to the end. I believe say you go learn a lot about the great Benin Kingdom. Enjoy the video.
Press statement delivered by Imashwen Amoge Zoluwa, Coordinator General, Great Benin Descendants Worldwide, on July 24th, 2021. Good morning to all the presidents seated here for the press conference of this association. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen from the academia, civil society, and from all walks of life, I say welcome most sincerely. First, before we officially unveil the essence of this press conference, permit me to introduce this group to you all appropriately. Since the inception of this group, we have identified over 42 ethnic nationalities or clans who have enthusiastically traced their roots to Benin. For purpose of time, we will hurriedly mention a few of them. Esans, Esako, Owan, Ekpeye, Oba, Epie, and Atise, Iwuroha, popularly known as the Query, the Obia people, the Gede of the present-day Benin state. We have the Ikare Ekiti, we have the Aborigines of the Ko, we have Aborigines of the Tabu, the present-day Ondo state. We have parts of the Ka, we have the Onitsha people of Anambra state. We have the Oguta of Imo state. We have Urobo, we have Ishoku, we have parts of Ishekiri people. We have Degema, as far back as Guinea and Ghana, Togo, and Benin Republic. We were in Ghana a few weeks ago, so we can testify the attraction of the Benin Empire towards that region. It is in this knowledge that we are pained of the injustice done to us by the British, and we were the last true resistance to their plans. Without our defeat, Nigeria as a country wouldn't have existed, and as such, we are the thriving nation which gave birth to Nigeria. Having briefly established the mandate of our group, we can now proceed to the business of today. The foundation of our organization is built in truth, integrity, selflessness, and patriotism. These in turn were the very fundamental elements that built the civilization the world came to envy. We must then start to find probable ways to tap into these rare virtues of our ancestors in order to find ways to curb the present trend of moral decadence in our society. This is about the toughest time, bested only by the dark days immediately following the British invasion. Our collective history has never been this threatened from both insiders and outsiders. We are barely gasping for air in order to survive the seemingly insurmountable assault from our supposedly relatives and neighbors, who will then come for a rescue, a question, begging for an answer. And the truth is, no one else will bear our pains for us other than ourselves. We must therefore face these tribulations head-on through unity with the hope that victory shall be attained. We have been perplexed with the beastly issues about our artifacts, and it has become a circular discussion in the lives of everybody. Different opinions have been articulated, some from the standpoint of interest, some from the standpoint of emotion, but our standpoint is anchored on truth. We collectively hold the reason of this press briefing and stated clearly that the bitter pill of the British invasion is engraved in the deepermost incourse of our soul, and we shouldn't play politics or be sentimental about the whole scenario. The artifacts in question belong to the Oba of Benin and should be diligently handed over to him. And we also respectfully believe that the Palace of the Oba of Benin should work with the Edo State government to share ideas that will rectify our sacred artifacts and also look into the prospect of using this glamorous artifact to better the lives of all Edo people. I go over Simi, over our top. The Edo man has continued to strive to break free from the unfortunate episode of the British invasion, with or without those artifacts stolen from the palace of the Oba of Benin, and will continue to be so. As such, our organization do believe that there are other situations currently trending in Benin Kingdom that must be given even more rapt attention. These situations, if allowed to linger more, it's believed will further destroy the very existence of our unique race. We must therefore reinstate clearly that the Oba and the Edo people are two sides of a coin. They are inseparable. Every intended gathering to separate these unbreakable cords, enmeshed in the sacrosanctity of our native promulgated law, will further draw us even closer to our God King, Oba or Edoya. Suffice to say, we must then now come together to fight our common enemies. Some are our very own self, and others are those around us. Oba Atope.
Yes, sir.
We have watched in a few years now, while our people continue to desecrate the very essence of our land, tradition, and customs, without concerted effort from all Edo people to curb this growing menace. Our history is currently being torn apart by the modern day revisionists in all social media outlets. Very few Edo people are still standing tall to curtail the gang up of our neighbors, which is heavily being aided by our very own sons and daughters, in order to completely vanquish our pride of our glorious past. We are rather frustrated on how some of our elders and elites have continued to concede to us their supposed jobs, and yet no support from them, except for very few of them who by their sacrifices we have maintained the platform and energy to continue to defend our God-given heritage. We appreciate those proud Edo sons and daughters who have given their all to these cause, and to those who are currently doing their best to salvage the emerging situation at hand. Ladies and gentlemen of the press, we can now proceed to some very critical aspects of our society that we feel is as important as the return of our artifacts, only that we are not observant enough to know that these things are even more important to the survival of our race. Number one, some months ago, one pastor, Ayo Arise Jofo, did fallaciously state that the Obas of Benin are of Yoruba descent, and that the official language of the palace until recent times was Yoruba language. We wish to use this press conference to once again do justice to such uninformed lies and educate the said pastor who was alleged to have stolen Nigeria Commonwealth with a private jet to South Africa sometime ago, to desist from historical issues and squarely face how to further extort his members. People allegedly ascribe the invention of the word Ikaladeran to Obaridia of blessed memory, that he coined the word to discredit his Yoruba heritage. Those thoughts are steeped in the abyss of the ignorance of such minds. Hence, an illumination of facts will help in bringing these people to historical light. The Kaladeran first appeared in written word in 1903, an extract from colonial recordings in the 1800s and published in 1903, which states, Guatun was the head center of the Court Malakun, the spirit of big water, that is the sea, big rivers, not creeks. Hence, it is easy to understand why it should be the town set aside for the entrance to Benin of the white man who came to the big water. I used to be told in vague the tale of the foundation of Guatun, that is the Guatun in this extract is referring to Guatun, a son of a king named Kaladason, he couldn't pronounce it properly because it's a Dutch, was its founder. Either his mother was false or he was accused of attempting one of his father's wives. Anyhow, he fled from Benin, and after much wandering and some magic with a palm tree and a turtle, took up his home at Guatun, where the turtle is sacred to this day, as it is also in Laro to the west of Lagos colony and in many other places. Kaladason's town throve, and he defeated an army sent by the king of Benin. His independent sovereignty was allowed, but he was never to return to Benin. That the book is called Great Benin, Its Customs, Art and Horror, written by Lingrod in 1903. Other Benin's fine minds, like Chief Ainiwu, did an article on Oduduwa and Ikaladeran in the 1960s. D.N. Omonsaye wrote about Ikaladeran in the 1980s, as well as other Benin historians like O.S.B. Omoyege, Chief Oselegie Eho, before Obaredawa published his work in 2004. So it is completely misleading to call fallacies of Ikaladeran origin, as Benin strongly believe that Ikaladeran became Oduduwa, a ruler in Ife, a move that prompted Olia Awoma to lead other delegations of Benin chiefs to retrieve their heir apparent, the only surviving son of Ogiso Owodu. The facts outlined completely assert the indigenous evolution of an idea of this personification of the Ikaladeran and its travails in his homeland in Benin Kingdom. One must quickly also discredit the wrong assertion that the official language of the palace of the Oba of Benin was Yoruba language. Rather, we can say that at one point in time the official language, can we say that at one point in time the official language of the Oonese palace was Edo language, because according to the oldest tradition practiced in Ile-Ife, called the Ikedu tradition, it is established that words like Ovene, Olokun, Uko, etc. were largely used in the palace established by Ikaladeran in Ile-Ife. One cannot but deny the maternal origin of Oromia being a Yoruba, having a Yoruba woman. Hence, the Yoruba language was sparingly used in the palace of the earliest Obas of Benin, just like how Ikaladeran introduced some Edo words into the Ile-Ife community, which has become an extant part of their oldest tradition. There is also an actual video circulating through the social media space, where it was alleged that the Oba of Benin, during his coronation speech, did agree to his Yoruba heritage. We want to use this medium to say that those editors of those videos are being rather petty, as Oba of Benin reiterated his complete Benineness, where he asserted his coronation speech, and I quote, "I therefore stand before you as the 40th Oba of Benin, the direct descendant of Oromia, the son of Oduduwa, whom the Benins of that era knew as Ikaladeran, their self-exiled prince who later became a ruler in Ile-Ife. With his majesty's speech, it is more than glaring that we completely understand the history of his ancestry. Of all the later three Western educated Obas of Benin, none of them has ever, by any documentation, either written or visual, described themselves as being a Yoruba king. Oba Akenza II was the brain behind the creation of Midwest region from the old Western region, while with a supposedly Yoruba man dissociates himself so vehemently from his Yoruba people. Obaredawa gave the biggest blow to the preposterous presumption of Benin kings being of Yoruba ancestry by publishing a book titled I Remember Your Obedient Servant in 2004. We have suffered a lot of historical destructions in the hands of those who could have been heroes of true historical accounts. But because of reasons unknown, they continue to dwell in lies and try all that they can to subvert the history of a greater people, maybe because of their ethnic hegemony and supremacy for political gains. The truth is that we as a Edo nation and people know better and will no longer assume alien antecedents for ourselves. As the Oduduwa being currently projected as progenitor of the Yoruba race, enjoys a wide range of uncertainty within the intellectual sphere of the Yoruba people. Questions that are readily asked include, why did it take Oduduwa 16 years to master the Yoruba if he was truly a Yoruba man? What does Oduduwa mean in Yoruba language? The funniest of them all is Yoruba spreading myths for truth. How does any human fall from the sky? So Yoruba historians who agree that Oduduwa was a foreigner because he met the aborigines of Ife, majority of which are now located in the present-day Ondo state as Ugbo people. There are historical evidence that support the indigenous evolution for the origin of Eweka First Dynasty, as opposed to alien antecedents being canvassed by some writers. In the records covering the period of the Ogiso, it was found out that Ogiso who reigned from 66 to 100 CE, died without an heir, and the oldest one was chosen among the nobles as successor, who became Ogiso or Dia. There was no use to request for a ruler from a non-existent Ile-Ife. When Ogiso Henede died without an heir in about 1821 to 1871 CE, they chose another man, Owede, son of Oboete, the second son of Ogiso, that is Oriagba's grandson, as next of kin, who became Ogiso Owede. There was no delegation to Ile-Ife. During the period of Owodo's travails that culminated in the years of interregnum, Prince Ikaladoran and his family was in Ile-Ife. It would be wrong, therefore, to choose another while the genuine heir apparent to the throne was still living. According to ASU writers, which posits that next to nothing is known about the Yoruba people themselves at this early date, and the assertion that Benin sent for an alien Yoruba ruler instead of accepting one of their numbers was inherently implausible. We are sounding a very stern warning to revisionists to desist from our history and concentrate in making history for their own future generations, just like the one the great Benin people currently enjoys. Fact number 2. A lot of questions have been asked as to the backbone of the old kingdom of Benin, how our imperial ancestors had sway in the thick of old times, built a very intimidating kingdom which was highly revered by far and near. There were elements that made it practically impossible for such feats to have been attained. The consequences of deviating from such vital attributes or elements have made our people to be who we are today. The Benin Oba presided over the political, traditional, and administrative affairs of his people with the councils of elders, Uzamani, state councillors, Egaonoe and Egaonogbe, Enigi, who helped in taking care of the periphery of the vast kingdom in forms of dukes, or Jongwe, who by native laws and custom of the Edo land saw the seat and through his fellow elders gave structured leadership to his community. Ihan. They helped the Oba maintain spiritual guidance through the deities and sanctify the land in times of infractions through propitiations. The Ere protect the laid down values of our land and enforce sanctions. Selflessness was one of the greatest attributes of an Edoma, which was a pride in the past to render these services to the kingdom without expectation of any form of recompense. It foils the patriotic abilities of every Edoma, and through these, in tandem with the structured organization of the people, a civilization was built, and the Edoma had those attributes that are almost a rarity in the market as of today. Truth. He prided himself in his ability to speak truth to whoever, irrespective of how highly placed. The services of the Edoma were sought after because of these virtues. Today, our society has largely eroded these common virtues of selflessness, patriotism, and truth in pursuit of riches and fame. These dignifying qualities are now found in a handful of Edo people. Community leaders now sacrifice their integrity for wealth, now fight their brothers for foreigners. Our values have never been this eroded, hence the growing madness of our people on social media space. They now desecrate the traditions of our land without remorse. Abominable words are now found daily on their lips. If we all don't collectively stand to fight these growing trends of our very much depleted values of our people, we might someday be a people without tradition and culture. Every Edo person must rise to fight those drifting from what made an Edoma what it was in the time past. To us, an association, this is what is really important, the survival of our race. By the instance of this press conference, we are pleading with our Royal Majesty to look into these things that we have outlined. Edo is fast disengaging from the values that made us Edo Nedugeria Magualo Obagatokwe. The third one, Agadagada Summit. This is an annual event that brings together all great Benin descendants all over the world. We believe there has to be a platform where all great Benin descendants can identify themselves with to discuss and chart the same socio-economic and socio-political ideas. We are not minorities. We only became one because we chose to. Our annual summit presents the opportunity like this for us to discuss practical ways where we can unite ourselves for a common futuristic goal. The event ought to be 22nd of July every year, when the Benin monarch was reborn in 1914 after 17 years of interregnum because of the British invasion. Ladies and gentlemen of the press, I wish to announce that Benin Kingdom is officially 2,058 years old since our king and father reigned as Ogisho Igodo. And by that reason, we are the second oldest surviving monarchy in the world and Africa's oldest surviving monarchy. Ogisho Kire Obara Tokwe. The mathematical calculation is thus. Ogisho dynasty lasted for 854 years, 285 years of the first interregnum, and 70 years of second interregnum, and lastly, 849 years of the present Oba dynasty and still counting. When calculated together, gives 2,058 years. It is through the knowledge of these that we are always proud of the legacies of the past and how we can build more on those legacies. That is why our annual Agadagada Summit was inaugurated in 2017 to create a platform where issues that will make us even greater can be presented. This year's summit will hold in the beautiful city of Port Harcourt, Rivers State, where we arguably have the largest concentration of Benin descendants. The said event is slated for the 28th of August, 2021. The last one. Lastly, our association has done the impossible since the inception in 2017. We have concentrated in uniting other Benin descendants in faraway land and lost focus of their very own people in present-day Edo State. Today we are faced with the sad reality that our people have never been this divided, and we must spring into action so it doesn't degenerate further. We are writing letters immediately after this press conference to 5 Enije in Esan land, notably the Okai Jason, for a private meeting to discuss on how we can find better ways to unite our people. Those letters will be submitted in 2 days' time, with a probable meeting with the Okai Jason in the next 7 days, but at his convenience. Time is of the essence. After the dark night comes the bright morning. We want to use this opportunity to finally wipe out the primordial sentiment once and for all. We will also include any of the kings of Esan land as patron of our association in order to strengthen inclusiveness. In addition, we shall encourage the setting up of a chapter of GBD domiciled in any of the great towns of Esan land, with a probable unity conference, and all of these will be achieved before the end of this year, God willing. In conclusion, ladies and gentlemen, the modern Benin people is in the shadow of its former exalted self, and every passing day will drown in the guilt of not realizing how long we have played second fiddle to other neighboring ethnic groups. We have mourned enough of what happened to us about 124 years ago. We must dust ourselves up and begin to start seeing the possibility of walking on the path of our heroic ancestors. Great Benin and its descendants are too great to have been shelled in the cocoon of unprecedented obscurity. We must rise up and take our place in the present affair of the country and the world, a place where we truly deserve, and we cannot do it by being divided as one and equal people. The great Benin Descendants must unite as one indivisible entity, and together we shall return back our lost glory, which is the cardinal focus of our association, uniting all great Benin Descendants all over the world as a tool, our rightful place in the affairs of this world. At this point, ladies and gentlemen, it is no longer a coincidence nor a mere choice, but the right of 576 years old prophecy that we will lead the next intellectual revolution that puts Benin back in the world atlas by the power of God and our ancestors. God bless great Benin people all over the world. God bless our nation that will be reborn. God bless our reviled monarch. Oba Atokwe.
Yes, sir.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much. We would love to entertain questions or contributions. So please, if you have questions from the house, please, you tell us your name, okay? You tell us your name, and if you are representing the organization, please state.
My name is Dr. Yomo. I work for the Sun newspaper. My question...
Watch newspaper.
Sun newspaper. The question is about you calling... It's the question of belonging to the order of the name and to be delicately handed over to him. And we also respectfully believe that the order of the name should work with the state government. I want you to tell us what kind of collaboration we need.
Respect for them. Okay. Any other questions?
Yeah. My name is Margaret Oko. I like for one eye and online. I just want to add to the question of artifacts that is being disputed upon. It is wrong for whether the federal government or any government or whatsoever to demand for Benin artifacts. Those things were removed. If you look at the Benin West African history, if you read the Benin Kingdom, those things were removed from the palace. If they are property of the palace and it has to do with the tradition, these things should be taken back to the palace. They are property of the palace. So it cannot be disputed by any government. Thank you.
I work for the National Police and also a blogger operating in all countries. You see, my question is outside that. I want to comment on the area of trying to, on the comment of Pastor Ayo, Bishop Jackson, trying to say that the name originated from the Yoruba. You see, I want to state categorically, according to my knowledge so far, that that's not true. We are not. The name originated from the Yoruba. So, on the other hand, I want to also say that in trying to unite all the tribes in those states, you mentioned at your introductory paragraph, you mentioned some of the essential people deeds that led people to outside the country, just like you have referred some of the culture in diaspora. In trying to also set up some of the establishment that you mentioned, a big deal in ESA, is there no need for you to also extend it to other local government like ESA or like in other parts of the states, so that we can form a formidable entity to fight against our regime?
Look beyond this amount. Okay. Look beyond this amount. All right. Any other questions? Let's take this three. Okay, I think it's just one is recommendation. The efforts we are putting on.
All right. The one talked about the Benin artifact. what GBD is saying is very clear. We are an historical group. In part of the press conference, he said we don't talk based on emotion, we don't talk based on sentiment, we talk based on truth. Some of us are well versed schools in our history, so we know that all those artifacts were stolen not from Nigeria, not from Edo State, were stolen from Benin Kingdom. They were stolen 17 years later before the geographical location of Nigeria was formed. So the dictates of the law is not binding in those artifacts. In as far as the palace where those artifacts were stolen is still existing till date. So the Oba of Benin is a custodian of the traditions and the heritage of the Edo people. The voice of the Edo people is very clear, basically not based on sentiment. We've seen a lot of sentiment flying on social media space. Interests are not being involved. But the truth is this, I didn't say 99%, all of those artifacts were parted away from the palace. I've had a question, so I've challenged a lot of Edo people. Some of them is behaving on social media space. That if you think any of those artifacts were parted away from your father's house, come and let's know you. None of them have been able to present. Instead, they went to form a group that talked about Ibuneo, Ibesama, and all of that. But failing to know that those guilds were created by Oba themselves. They are part of various, some of the guilds are part of the Wegwai, some of the guilds are part of the Weibo. These are two guilds under a Raiwono way, which are councils under the supremacy of the Oba of Benin. So Oba of Benin created a guild that created those artifacts. So the only artifact in Yamani artifacts. So that has to be clear. But the area of collaboration is that the artifact will surely, on no account, will allow the Edo State government to be handed over to handle those artifacts. Or no case with the federal government handle those artifacts. What we have said is that first, if there are supposed to be dialogue on what the collaboration between any of them, whether federal government or state government, with the palace of the Oba of Benin, first, one thing has to be acknowledged. The owner of the thing should hand over his property to him first. Then he will now say, okay, the state government now, you cannot come, let's sit and talk. That is where the collaboration comes. Obviously, the palace will need the state government to build the world-class museum, no doubt about it. But one thing that we first of all we have to agree is that the palace owns those artifacts. And after that is done, there cannot be a roundtable discussion between the owner and the state government on how they can build museum and make it economically viable or so for the entire good of the Edo people. So the collaboration is after the property would have been handed over to the owner. And that is what we stand as a group on. And that is the sacred truth. That GBD is ready to take anybody on a debate on that matter, should any person say that, or buying artifacts in it. So I think I've answered that.
Yes.
Then the second one is on
Mr. Jaco's assertion.
Research Jaco's assertion. All right, some of these pastors who are supposed to face their pastoral jobs or duties as regards where the Benin people came from. We've gone through the sentiment of who is older. We have facts that the palace of the Oba of Benin, through the reigns of the Obisos, have lasted for 2,058 years. That's a fact. The Yoruba should provide theirs. Theirs is only worth for 1,000 years. It's a people that mix mythology with fact. They sometimes replaces fact with mythology. So we don't deal in mythology, we deal in fact. So Mr. Joko had said that because of his Shekiri background. The Shekiri of recent times are not trying to break free from their Benin ancestry. We know how Jinwa, our son, went to establish the Warring Kingdom. That is not in dispute. If the Benin have a current controversy with the Ife people. The Ishekiri should remove their mouths from the controversy between the Ife and the Benin people. Omaka Ishekiri, the dispute is between the Benin and Ife. It's like a branch. It's like a branch telling the stem where the root is. The Ishekiri are a branch of Benin. They cannot now bypass us and not go and tell us that the market era or tamomo, they cannot carry it, or more tanera, they cannot carry it. We are the fathers of the royal houses of majority of the Ishekiri people. Ishekiri has no right through Orisa Joko to not tell the Benin people where we came from. We are supposed to be the one telling it. And I have said it even in the written paper that there are part 4 Western educated Obas of Benin, 4 of them. The first one is Obaoro Boa, all right, and there are no controversies about where if and all that. But the later 3 is Oba Akenza II, who was Westernly educated, very educated. Obaridiawa, per se, is the most educated of all the Obas to date now. Then I'm presently Obaiwari II. Oba Akenza II, who is an educated Oba, started the whole Midwest movement to break the Benin people from the clutches of the Yoruba people. If he had seen himself as a Yoruba person, he would not want to separate himself from the Yoruba people, yet he created a region to separate his people from the clutches of the Yoruba people. That shows that he's trying to tell you that on Makaya, we don't have anything to do with the Yoruba people. Then the second, which is Obaridia. Obaridia published a book, I Remember Your Obedient Servant, published in 2004, right in the very heart of Yoruba land, the University of Ibadan. Where he stated it clearly that the Oduduwa that you guys are celebrating, in presence of all their kings and their respected historians, professors, that all of the Oduduwa you guys are celebrating is from Benin, and none of them said anything. All right, then the second one, the third one is Obaiwari II. In his coronation speech, a lot of the IPOBs and Igbos and some of our enemies have edited the speech. See, this is how they edited the speech. This is how they edited it. I therefore stand before you as the 40th Oba of Benin, the direct descendant of Oromia, the son of Oduduwa. So we'll cut that video there. That's how deceiving a lot of these media guys are. But the right video continued, whereby he said, and the Benis of that era knew him as a Kaladeran, their self-exiled prince, who later became a ruler in Ile-Ife. So there have been a lot of devices, strategies for people to deceive people, and that's why we have this press conference so that we can address some of these critical issues.
Don't do. Don't finish work.
Let's take the international anthem for round off.
When it came to global media, I don't know.
Let's quickly share this thing. What's okay? Yes.
Your position, yes. Your position on the stolen artifacts. Actually, face the position where
Guys,
the
the
stolen
artifacts. Yeah, it's a very clear case, right? It was stolen from the Bar Benin Palace, 1897, during the British invasion of Benin. So I think there's nowhere else that thing should be returned to outside the Bar Benin Palace. So what is really going on with the state government and other people who are becoming selfish? I guess they are out of their mind. They should all refrain themselves. Come back to the issue of working other groups like association, rather organizations like NROTs and co. I can't imagine myself what belongs to me. Somebody else want to inherit it from my child life. It's not done. So the process on ground is just the process I think in the first place all people have arised. And so we are so happy and we are still very glad that the Baba Benin is really standing firm and strong. Other persons who also really also join in. Right. We're expecting more to come. So whoever ever think from other corners of the country, please still let these things go easily and go without one expect and be happy about it. That's what we see. Nothing much about it. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Doing the live stuff.
The live program. Just interview about 3 people.
It's live and stuff. Was it possible from the actual practice?
Second one.
I don't know if I heard. What's the paper?
My position in the stolen artifact. Yes, I stand with the group on my own. The artifacts belong to the Yoruba. But one thing I would not want people to bother about it, that is coming from the government of Germany. It's between the government of Germany and Nigeria government. There's nothing wrong about that. The federal government should receive it and hand it over to the Yoruba. That's it.
It's like he's a pressman. He's a pressman.
Good evening. Your position about the stolen artifacts.
Okay, just like we have rightly stated, the truth is it belongs to the palace and the palace is still existing. So all what we are saying is the palace too have to also work in conjunction with the state government because they cannot build the museum or whatever by themselves. They also need the support of the state government to build whatever they want to do where they put the artifacts. So I feel the state government and the palace should work together, but the artifact will definitely go to the palace.
I don't know. I'm a spectator.
I don't know.
Okay, okay, thanks. Yes, it is very, very obvious that the voice of the people is the voice of Vox Populi, Vox State. A lot of people have been saying that the artifacts that was stolen in 1897 by British invaders belonged to the Oba of Benin. That is the position. The artifacts were not rooted in government tax. Government tax was not even existing. Even before colonial administration, Nigeria was not even existing before the artifacts were stolen. What is the controversy surrounding? Why is Edo State governor trying to play a smart role because of the finance that is involved in it? As far as the artifacts were stolen in the palace, and we still have palace in Benin, all the artifacts should be returned to the Oba of Benin. Oba of Benin is the custodian of our tradition. And so submit, there is nothing to fear back. We don't need to ignore. Thank you.
Okay, and we'll see if we take all the questions.
What? All right.
Take one other question.
Okay, why is that deposit here?
Oh, before.
Your takes are on the artifacts.
Stolen artifacts. I feel a lot of these things might have been blown out of proportion, basically. Like what the Oba said. In Benin, the Oba have instructed every Edo sons and daughters to pray for the government. Why did he say we should pray for the government? We should pray for him so that he can make right decision. You know, there is always the power that comes with being the executive governor of a state. And that power, if not carefully managed, can drive you to take some decisions that if you were not in power, you would have taken. Now, that's why the Oba said we should continue to pray for him. So we are praying for him so that he can understand the history behind those artifacts. Those artifacts took the blood of so many. Lives were paid. The king was deported. The king died in a foreign land. And Oba Benin died in a foreign land and was buried there in Calabar. So we can no longer play politics with such artifacts. The artifacts should be returned and given back to the owner. Now the owner will now decide how it should be used. If you decide to say in a museum, doesn't want museum, so be it. If you may, no, that's how it's supposed to be. So the artifact, the federal government is negotiating the artifact on behalf of the Palace of the Oba of Benin. That's not bad. When it eventually comes, it should be handed over to the owner, which is the Oba of Benin. So that's my take on the matter.
This one are the different. Okay. You guys will be snubbed. Let's take it before you go in there.
Take it up. Join us.
Abeg, help us share this video. If you get anything to add join wetin you don hear today for this video, you fit put your own for comment section. If you never subscribe to Dan ARG YouTube, try make you subscribe so that make you for the hear all the things wey dey happen for Nigeria. Make I leave you with this video, make you help us share am. Thank you for watching Dan ARG YouTube.